it's another art vlog. In this one, I wanted to do a speed painting that was combined with a few shots about how the painting came together. It seems like a good way to kind of show the process behind this specific piece of art because it's my favorite painting that I've done so far. So let's first go over the materials that I used in the video. I'll include links in the description, of course, but I also want to talk about them now. The paint that I used for this is the Winsor & Newton travel paints. I used the Linden Art watercolor journal, and I think I used 1-inch masking tape. Like I said, I'll put links in the description, but I'm not sure that the link that I include is the exact tape I used, but basically its purpose is to give you a clean edge and to keep the paint from curling with the water. So you can pick whatever size you want. I also always stick the tape to my clothes a couple of times before I put it on the paper because it keeps the page from tearing when you take the tape off. A few other notes about my supplies. The paints are very cool, and I have been having a lot of fun experimenting with mixing my own colors using them. You'll see the black from the streets in a bit, and it's one of my favorite colors that I've made. I made it using phthalo blue and burnt umber, and it's just breathtaking, which has made me very silly, but I don't care. The paintbrush that came with this kit is kind of also my favorite brush right now. It's like the perfect size and weight. I don't know. Finally, I think that the paper in this field book is also my favorite watercolor paper that I've encountered. It's just a pile of like great supplies that I have, and this paper is great because it's like it holds up to water and it holds onto the water, and then the paint reacts very well with it. Everything just kind of like spreads out and blends and dries very evenly. It's an absolute chef's kiss. So for this particular painting is almost a year in the making. It kind of started with me stumbling on some videos about underpainting, and then that made me curious about painting really atmospheric sunset scenes. And then I combined this idea with a different thread that I'd been following over the last year, which is drawing houses. And then I guess like that kind of interest started back when we were listening to a lot of lo-fi on YouTube, and there's a lot of playlists that have art, that feature art that involve houses from interesting angles. And then there's like a specific Bootleg Boy playlist that I'll link to in the description that featured the outside of a house, and I really loved the angles and the colors, and so I took a picture of my TV screen and kind of saved it as an inspiration photo to start drawing what like the neon phase of all of these like kind of urban drawings. So I took that inspiration picture on April 3rd of 2020 just to give kind of a reference about, you know, time and my like where we are in time and where my skills are and stuff like that. And so as I started drawing this painting, I couldn't actually draw the dormer at the time, but I had these like really rad Koi neon paints, the Koi brand. So I used those and kind of mixed up some colors to try to, I guess I recreated the color in the painting, but I didn't do it exactly the same as the inspiration photo, and I ended up drawing this instead. So this painting was the first in a series of drawings that were, like I said, inspired by that Bootleg Boys image. And I finished this first one on April 19th of 2020. And then I did that same painting over and over again for a little while, varying it slightly here and there and just kind of practicing like getting the angles and stuff like that right. And then over time it started to take on emotions and tones that I felt towards the last house we had lived in. And I did end up getting some new paints as well and moved it kind of out of my neon phase and into more like realistic colors. And eventually I ended up with this painting. And this was the last painting in that series. And I finished this on November 14th of 2020. If you look closely at the picture that I have up, you can also see where the tape tore the paper a little bit, which is why, like I said, I stick it to my pants sometimes. But like I said before, at this point I had gotten a different palette. It was still koi paints, but it wasn't just the neon colors anymore. And so I ended up with this kind of more, just a slightly different like tone and feel to the painting. And I ended up showing it to one of my friends, and her feedback was that it felt really warm. And she felt like she was looking out of her window, like over at the neighbors or something like that. And she felt kind of like safe and like she belonged or something, which I remember being surprised about because I hadn't realized how much of the emotions I had focused on while I was painting had kind of like made it into the painting. And it was like the end of 2020 at this point. So the holidays, and so with like the holidays and stuff like that, I was feeling very nostalgic and a lot of like longing. And so like not only was I chasing my interests while making this, I was also reminiscing about my old house and my old yard, and I was missing the sumac in our yard and the way it felt when you drove into the driveway and just kind of saw the house. So because of her feedback, when I found the video about the underpainting, I got really inspired to try to find new ways to imbue an image of home with warmth and familiarity and peace. Some time had gone by. It'd been about 6 months or so, and I'd been chasing other inspirations, consuming new art, and reminiscing about other things. And some of my ideas for how to paint, for how to do this painting, evolved past missing my country home, and we're focusing more on where I am in my life now. And so that kind of leads us into the part where we're going to do like the sunset washes, or as I like to call it, the sunset phase. The painting from this perspective of looking out the window was really interesting to me, and I wanted to try to keep that type of feeling in the next paintings that I was doing. But I live in an urban setting now, and I'd spent the whole spring kind of planning a patio garden and thinking about how to get good privacy without shutting out the neighborhood. So when it was time to start painting, my focus shifted away from the warm country feel to more of a like neighborhood, like urban neighborhood focus. So I picked out, for my first attempt, I picked out a series of simple house doodles, and I used those as inspiration to just kind of put together some kind of drawing that was simple and quick that I could use to test my wash on. The drawing was a pretty smooth process, which was actually a sign of progress for me, because drawing has been quite frustrating to learn. As my hands just don't do what I want them to. I don't think I'm the only one with that problem, but it is frustrating, but also surmountable. I used these little house doodles as a starting point, drew up something, made a few changes here and there to make them my own. The process was to draw, then ink, then paint, and this is how the finished painting came out. The first finished painting came out. This painting was done in July of 2021, and it was my first painting in my new sketchbook. But anyway, the drawing went well, and within the first few strokes of the sunset wash, disaster happened. Basically, the red wouldn't mix in right with the other colors, and it started to kind of look brown and weird. And there was definitely this moment where I considered just starting over, but it had taken a lot of effort to draw the picture, so I wanted to see what I could do, I guess, with the mistake. And which is a direct result of watching a ton of Bob Ross, full disclosure. Also, he's just right. And I'm glad I kept painting, because it turned out to be way more, much cuter than I thought it was going to be. And actually, as a pro tip, every project has an ugly phase that will make you consider giving up. I learned this from crocheting as well. Like, you just definitely keep going. 93% of the time, it is not saving time to stop in the middle and start over. You learn way more from finishing things. And so here's what I learned from this painting. First of all, I decided to do a few practice washes on the ambient wash, and I learned that the colors really work best if you start with the color like in the middle of the color and work out. That way you aren't mixing, say, the red with both the yellow and the blue. One part of the red can become more orange, and then you clean your brush and you work with the middle of the red toward the blue and make a cleaner purple that's not brown. Also, you want to let the underpainting dry all the way before painting the foreground details. That way, the bushes won't run into the sky, which is my preference because I like a much cleaner line. With watercolor, you can definitely have a more abstract feel to the way the color bleeds into each other, but I personally just prefer cleaner washes than that. The last thing I learned is that I really love how the sky changes the color of the houses, and having the house that's shrouded in darkness was like very cool, and I wanted to kind of keep that and moving forward. My second attempt at this painting was way worse. Basically, I got all excited about how the houses turned out when I drew them, and I started painting all the details first, and then I went and tried to do what was supposed to be the underpainting, but I was doing it over all of the painted details, and because it's watercolor, the paint reactivated and smeared like quite badly. But it's all good. I just finished it anyway, and this is how it turned out. Okay, so I finished this second painting also in July of 2021, and like I said, I had made a pretty rookie mistake in doing it, but at the end it kind of just looked like it was rainy. Like I was looking outside of a rain-soaked window. Either way, I really liked the vivid colors, and I learned that I should do the underpainting first. This is where I first mixed up the black for the street, and so I learned how to do that and decided it looked absolutely rad. And then I knew I wanted to recreate the houses again because I did like how they looked, but with this painting I decided that I wanted to do a double page painting next time to have 4 houses and more street, so that it was more of that neighborhood feeling, and then also maybe so I could do kind of a more complete like sunset sky type of thing. And so like this painting, the second painting was like objectively just not a good painting. There were definitely technical issues, and it got messed up. But honestly, there's a lot of joy in this painting for me too. Like it's a complete and finished thing, and the mistakes helped shape it, and the sky turned out great, even with my need to minimize how I was smearing everything. And if this painting had to be good, it wouldn't have happened. And I think that that's the lesson I'm really trying to embrace. I kind of worry that people will think that me saying I'm not good at this or I'm bad at art is like kind of me being overly self-deprecating or pretending to be humble or something, but there's a lot in my life that actually hasn't happened because above all else it needed to be good. And I genuinely find happiness and freedom in not chasing that sort of ideal anymore. I just want to follow what amuses me and kind of see what happens. And sometimes it's things that when you're done, you're like, this is actually bad, but let's just pretend like I'm just looking through a rainy window, So the next painting actually went really well. And at this point I had a good idea of what I wanted the houses to be. I had tinkered with the palette a little and had some fun kind of transitioning from drawing from one page to the other. It's kind of subtle, but it's good, and the painting itself went very smoothly, and I got a good wash, and it turned out pretty nice. I actually have a couple pictures of this. I don't know if I'll include them all, but I have a couple. So this last painting was done on July 31st, 2021, and honestly there's not a lot that I want to say about it other than that I immediately wanted to do it again, and that brings us to the painting that is in the speed painting part of this video. So with this painting I wanted to add the border because I needed to stop the paint from bleeding on to other pages, and I also really like the crisp line look. It's rad in general, and so it's kind of a win-win decision. And so here is the final product. And the The final painting in the series was finished on August 13th, 2001, and I honestly love how this one turned out. The crisp, clean border, the details on the house, the color, and the way that the underpainting shines through everything is just amazing. Something I really love about watercolor painting is how the colors build on each other so you can get this atmospheric quality to the whole picture. And the bleeding color around the border of the page is both why I added that border and honestly just in general a pretty cool touch. I don't know. And maybe it's not very humble to say, but I really love this painting and I love the journey that I took to get here. It's everything I was trying to accomplish. I can see my growth in both my painting and my drawing as this has evolved. And it makes me feel really proud of myself, which isn't something I'm always comfortable with. But fuck it, I did well here. So in the time it has taken me to finish this blog, which has been a while, I've had a lot of sound issues, but I've actually kind of already spilled something on this painting. It's just a little drop of tea, but it's enough that I can't make it digital, which was something I'd hoped to kind of digitize it and maybe try to sell it or something. So I'm actually going to try to redo it one more time and see if I can make some kind of digital upload. Who knows though, maybe it's not practical. TeePublic has really decent quality prints, but the odd shape of the painting might work against it. Either way, I'm already kind of thinking of like what new watches I can do. Like how can I make this spooky, or what about a Christmas one? I don't know. So there's, we'll see what we come up with. Here's to being bad at things though, so that they stay fun and exciting. Okay, that's all. I love you. Bye.